In this guide, why network services cannot safely ask for a password every time, how Kerberos turns one login into reusable but time-limited tickets, what the ASREQ, TGSREQ, and APREQ messages are actually doing, and which attacks defenders must plan for in real enterprise deployments. Identity Expert, powering you to be an expert in identity. Today we're unpacking Kerberos, pronounced Kerberos, the ticket-based network authentication protocol that still powers Active Directory logon across most enterprise Windows environments. Kerberos solves a deceptively hard problem. How does a user prove identity to many different services on the same network without sending the password to each one? The answer is not a bearer token and not a session cookie. It is a chain of cryptographically protected tickets issued by a trusted key distribution center. By the end of this guide, you'll understand what a ticket-granting ticket actually is, how the authentication server and ticket-granting server split the job, what goes over the wire in the AS and TGS exchanges, and why attacks like Pass the Ticket and Kerberoasting are still operationally important. Think of a secured office campus with one trusted reception desk and many locked rooms. At the front entrance, an employee shows identity once to reception. Reception does not escort that employee to every room. Instead, it hands back a sealed campus pass saying this person has already authenticated. When the employee needs access to the finance room, they take the campus pass back to reception and ask for a room-specific badge. Reception checks the pass, creates a new sealed badge addressed only to the finance room and gives it to the employee. The employee presents that badge at the finance room door and the door accepts it because only reception could have created it. In Kerberos, reception is the key distribution center. The campus pass is the ticket-granting ticket, or TGT. The room-specific badge is the service ticket, and the locked room is the application service, file share, database, web app, or domain service. Without Kerberos, every network service becomes its own password verification point. That is a terrible security design. Each server would need a copy of password-derived secrets or a direct way to validate passwords, multiplying the blast radius if one machine is compromised. Passwords would also cross the network more often, which increases exposure to interception, replay, and weak service-side implementations. Kerberos centralizes the hard part. The user proves identity once to the authentication server, which is one role of the key distribution center. After that, the password is out of the conversation. Every other service sees only tickets, authenticators, timestamps, and encrypted session keys. This design gives single sign-on inside the trust domain, reduces password exposure, and lets services trust the KDC instead of each service becoming its own identity system. The Kerberos flow has 3 stages. First comes the logon exchange. The client sends an ASREQ to the authentication server asking for a ticket-granting ticket. In modern deployments, this request usually includes pre-authentication data proving the client knows the long-term secret. The authentication server replies with an ASREP. Inside that reply is a client-to-TGS session key encrypted for the user, and a TGT encrypted with the secret key of the TGS service. In Active Directory, that is the TGT account. Second comes service acquisition. When the user wants a specific service, the client sends a TGSREQ containing the TGT plus an authenticator and asks for a ticket to a named service principal. The ticket-granting server verifies the TGT, creates a client-to-service session key, and returns a TGS rep with a service ticket encrypted for that target service. Third comes service use. The client sends an APREQ to the application service containing the service ticket and a fresh authenticator. The server decrypts the ticket with its own long-term secret, validates the authenticator and timestamp, and if mutual authentication is required, it returns an AP rep proving it is the legitimate server. At that point, the client and service share a session key, and the user is authenticated without the service ever seeing the password. On the wire, 2 Kerberos structures matter most. In the AS exchange, the KRB_ASREQ identifies the client principal and the TGS service principal, usually KRB-TGT for the local realm, and carries pre-authentication data such as an encrypted timestamp. The KRB_ASREP returns a ticket plus encrypted part. The ticket is meant for the ticket-granting server, not for the client to read. The encrypted part for the client carries the session key, ticket lifetime, flags, and the client realm. Later, the KRB_TGSREQ presents that TGT and asks for a service principal name or SPN, such as http:/internet.corp.example. The KRB_TGS rep returns the service ticket and a fresh client-to-service session key. Finally, the APREQ to the service contains that service ticket and an authenticator with the client identity and a timestamp. That timestamp is why clock synchronization matters so much in Kerberos. Freshness is one of the protocol's core replay defenses. Kerberos is strong when its assumptions hold, but the operational threat model is brutal. First, pass the ticket. If an attacker steals a valid TGT or service ticket from memory, they may not need the password at all. The defense is short ticket lifetimes, credential guard-style protections, constrained admin exposure, and aggressive endpoint hardening. Second, Kerberoasting. An attacker requests service tickets for service accounts, extracts the ticket material encrypted with that service account's long-term secret, and cracks it offline if the password is weak. Defenses are long random service account secrets or group managed service accounts, strong encryption types, and monitoring unusual TGS request patterns. Third, replay and time abuse. Kerberos authenticators depend on timestamps, so large clock drift can break availability while weak replay handling can open abuse paths. That is why tightly managed NTP and replay cache behavior matter. And fourth, the KDC itself is critical infrastructure. If the domain controller or its key material is compromised, the attacker effectively controls trust for the realm. Kerberos reduces password exposure, but it absolutely does not eliminate the need to defend the identity core. Kerberos is not going away soon. It remains the default network authentication system inside Active Directory domains, which means millions of enterprise endpoints still depend on it daily. What is changing is the edge around it. Pre-authentication has become mandatory in sane deployments. PKINIT lets smart cards and certificate-based logon plug into the same framework. Newer hardening layers such as FASD protect the pre-authentication conversation itself. At the same time, modern identity stacks increasingly terminate user authentication at web identity layers like OpenID Connect, passkeys, and device-bound credentials, then drop into Kerberos only inside the corporate trust domain. The practical future is coexistence. Internet-facing identity moves toward phishing-resistant public key login, while Kerberos remains the internal SSO engine for legacy Windows, file shares, and many enterprise line-of-business services. All primary sources cited in today's guide are listed on screen. You'll find direct links to the RFCs and specifications in the video description below. If this breakdown helped you understand Kerberos better, please subscribe to Identity Expert. We publish a new protocol deep dive every week. Thanks for watching. If there's a specific identity standard, authentication flow, or security protocol you'd like us to cover next, drop it in the comments below. We build our content based on what the community asks for. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode.